You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello and welcome to the show. We have a very interesting guest today. Her name is Alyshia Ochse, and she is a Los Angeles-based actress, podcast host, and entrepreneur known for her role in HBO's True Detective. She also stars in The Other Black Girl, which is on Hulu, and has appeared in various shows and films. Alyshia hosts the podcast That One Audition and co-founded The Bridge for Actors, an online program for aspiring working actors. Alyshia, it's so great to have you here on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's always nice when you hear your bio back. You're like, oh, wow. Yeah, I do a lot. Yeah,
exactly. Now, I'm particularly interested in having you on the show, as you are today, because most people don't know that I was an actress for many years. And actually, I also used to coach actors on performance. Go figure. Okay, so I would love to hear, because I think that it's really interesting, and I'm always interested in people's journey. So you're in Hollywood now, right?
Yes, 20 years.
Yep, 20 years. So how did you get there? Where are you from? And tell me a little bit about your childhood background and how you got to Hollywood in the first place.
You know, it's really interesting because I have a 7.5-year-old daughter. And at 5, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. My daughter told me at 5 exactly what she wanted to do. But I was a little girl in Kentucky at 5 that told my mom, I want to be in the TV. I just want to be, I didn't know what that meant, but I wanted to be in it. I wanted to. So, you know, Kentucky, and not to date myself, but the internet was not around. And my mother, who's in banking, and my father, who was an engineer, they had no, cute. That's real cute. Then I journeyed through sports for a while to really appease, you know, my dad, who didn't have sons. Cut to a knee injury that landed me back into my purpose. So I got out to LA as fast as I possibly could. I wasn't allowed, or was highly discouraged to go to school for acting because what's your plan B? I listened for a second for that safety net of what my plan B was, only to finish school. I went to the University of Kentucky, finished in 3 years, and got to LA, showed up with a U-Haul, knew nobody. And I had to learn on the ground what it meant to be in the TV. It wasn't just, you know, like I had to learn. I studied with everybody and anybody. And I was constantly just asking questions, trying to figure it out. I was a reader. And then I started working in 2005 and then allowed myself that time and space to really figure it out. And, you know, in my coaching business now, what I call for actors is it's like going up the stairs. I had the privilege of working with Nick Cassavetes, and he was amazing. And he like one day he was like, kid, you know, acting is just going up the stairs, and there's an infinite amount of stairs. Even Meryl Streep has stairs. You're never going to get it right. And that to me, I wish I could go back and whisper, you know, to that 22-year-old girl that showed up here, like, you're not going to jump landings. You're not going to be the series regular tomorrow. So what are the incremental steps to get there? And in making mistakes, one day I had some flagellation in an audition that was hysterical. And from that mistake spawned this idea of talking about auditions more and just kind of pulling back the veil on that. So then I started interviewing other actors. How do you audition? What have been some of your greatest auditions? What have been some of your worst? And I think getting to hear that kept me in the game. So then I started releasing it as a podcast. And then from that, just the idea of mentorship grew. And around that time, I was about 15 years in. And if I wish I could go back, I wish I could go back. I am that type of person who does mistakes. And then I like to be able to turn around and tell the person coming up, hey, if you can see it, you can be it. Also, if you can see me make mistakes, you can also pivot out of this pothole. So I wanted to kind of turn it around and start giving it back to the people that were coming up behind me. So from the podcast, then I started coaching, and then I launched The Bridge for Actors, which is literally our tagline is going from a student of acting to a working actor. And what does that take? And for me, it's like the new triple threat. You need to be savvy in auditioning. And tech is huge now for auditions because we're online. You need to be savvy in your craft. You need to be savvy in your business. Like relationships are what keep you in the game. The reason why I've been doing this for 20 years is because some of the jobs I did back in 2005 planted seeds. So I really wanted creatives. I think a lot of times too, you know this as an actor, we're sold this overnight success or this
that's also in business too.
Right? Or this struck gold or like, oh my gosh. Yeah. One of my girlfriends has a multi-million dollar online business. She posted about her first course from 2016, right? So a lot of people always kind of want to jump on to what's the accelerated version to this. And for me with creativity, that just burns creativity. I think it kind of, it's the great killer of creativity.
Right.
So I really wanted to be able to go back and mentor myself. Like it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. What seeds are you planting? What's the bridge that you're going over to get to that mountaintop? What's the next bridge you're going over? And allowing yourself that time. I also say on the podcast constantly, creativity has its seasons. You have to have winter in order to have spring. You cannot continually, you're not going to hit every single time. Your instrument's not always available. And I think a lot of times then as artists, and I think just as people too, we look at it as rejection instead of selection, you being a part of the selection process. So I really wanted to encourage a lot of the great storytellers that are coming up with me, around me, to the side of me, that they're not doing anything wrong. You know, it's just a matter of time before your number is called. If you are actually working on your craft, you know your tech, you know how the business works. If you know how the business works, then you're not looking for that overnight success. You're not looking for that quick jump to something.
Right.
And what we were just talking about off mic too, my biggest concern, I think, with coaches in the creative space is the parasite mentality that you need me in order to succeed. I truly believe that all of us are so different and unique that if we all have the tools of what it takes or whatever that technique is, that the right instrument gets to be a part of that creative process of telling that story, of painting that painting. It doesn't, or getting that job. We are always looking for that puzzle piece, right? And we're not always going to fit it all the time. So we have to go through moments of being told no so we can kind of start to shape ourselves. And then you end up being the right puzzle piece at a certain time. But I just didn't want to see, I'm such a cheerleader at heart. I always have been. So I really love being able to help people stay in the game, for lack of better.
Right. Well, that's so interesting that you say that, because there are a lot of correlations between when I was an actress and business. It is the same thing. And actors all want to just be discovered. And I talked about this the other day with some of my clients. And business people think they're just going to do three things and clients are going to fall on their head, sort of like the roles are going to fall on your head. So life and process is all just a bunch of stairs, whether you're a filmmaker or an actor or a business person or a pianist, right? So all of that applies. And I felt like the fact that I went through so much rejection, i.e. not getting roles, when I started a business, I was used to that. Yeah. I didn't have an expectation they were all going to say yes on a sales call. So it's good training and it's realistic, because nothing in life is yes, 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 yes. Nothing. Dating, no. Business, no. School's not yes, yes, yes. We get good grades, we get bad grades. Even if you're an A student, you might get a bad grade. So I think that's great that you are educating actors, not only on the tech, but the mindset that this is not that fantasy of, the cliche, I'm going to turn up to Hollywood and somebody's going to discover me in a cafe. Like, who was that? Was it
Ashton Kutcher? I think Ashton Kutcher showed up here and 2 weeks later had the 70s show. Like nobody, that is such an anomaly.
That's such an anomaly. He was lucky. So we're not supposed to, in business or in life, hope for the magic wand. We are there for the process. And what you said was really amazing, that you had seeds planted all that time ago and now people know you. And by the way, congratulations on your roles.
Thank you.
Because not everybody even gets that kind of a role, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk more about, I think it's amazing you got this platform. Let's talk more about what is needed for actors now as opposed to before, like as far as tech all that. What do they need to know? We all know they need to practice their lines and they got to do scene study and get coaching on the audition coaching, which is what I used to coach on, was the audition coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So what do they need now? If somebody turns up to Hollywood, what are they going to need?
Oh, you're going to need so much. Okay, so the world has changed. And I like how you even said, like, oh, coaching, learn your lines. Well, it's not even just to learn your lines anymore, right? Like, we want to, like, anybody can read lines. That's what I always tell actors. Anybody can read lines. Anybody can go in and do a great audition once. It's consistency of practice. So consistency of practice of your craft, right? Because it's not just going to show up. It's like riding a bike. If you're riding it every day, you can jump on. I always use the analogy of Michael Jordan. If you're doing free throws every day and then you're in the game, you don't even realize that you just made how many free throws because it's automated. But a huge component of being an actor today is you have to know your lighting, your framing, and how to work a camera. And a lot of actors are bucking up against this right now. So, because the trend has changed since COVID. And I started doing this in 2007. I started putting myself on tape back then because I couldn't get in the door. Because a lot of times for casting directors, they're looking for a role, they're going to see 50 people. Well, until they know you, how do you get on that list? So back in 2007, I started telling my agents, I'll tape it. I'll tape the audition. They can look at it and be like, oh, yeah, actually she is good. Or, oh, no, still not what we're looking for. So I was already in that practice. We're currently striking right now for a lot of these terms where people really want to get back in the room. But since COVID, everything's at home. Actors, I really want actors to stop being whiny about this because it sets you up for the 10,000 hours to be on set. So let's go back to Ashton Kutcher. He's lucky. He shows up. He gets the 70s show. He gets his 10,000 hours on set. He learns how to hit his mark. He understands lighting. He understands framing. If you're a brand new actor, you now have to submit self-tapes. So you have to know how to frame yourself. You can frame for story. You can frame and tell a story by using your frame. How do you do lighting? Okay, great. So instead of complaining about this, if you can embrace this part of the industry, it's going to make you set proof ready. When I first got to set in 2005, I had to learn that in a multicam, you can't improv. Like there's a musicality to it. I had to hit my mark. I had to there's so many people. Now as an actor, when you're coming out of conservatory or you're just landing in any of these markets, or you don't have to move anymore. That's a huge perk as an actor.
It's fantastic.
You do need to learn how you are going to use the frame, your lighting, and to be able to do the editing part of it. It's very simple. People are doing TikTok, getting TikTok famous by doing editing. So why can't you do it for yourself?
And they're 10 or 15,
right? So I think that's one huge component. The other component that I think everybody needs to realize is exactly what we kind of already said, but the business part of it, know how the business is working right now and start planting seeds. And how actors usually like to plant seeds, it's like, hi, I'm new to town. Look at my headshot. Don't throw me away. I like to network differently. People respond best to compliments. So here's a little giveaway that I give away when I'm consulting actors. Do you like when somebody's like, hey, can you do this for me? Hey, pick me. Do you like me? No, that's kind of off-putting. It's desperate.
Right.
I love complimenting. So if I am trying to get in front of casting or starting to create an organic, authentic relationship, people respond best to compliments. I make a goal. I still do this every year. If there's casting people I haven't seen yet, I want to hit maybe 2 or 3. I watch what they're casting. I will email them and be like, damn, the casting for The Madness was absolutely insane. I don't know where you found this actor from, but kudos to you. Also, casting doesn't get a lot of recognition. So now they've seen my name. They know I'm not asking for anything. They know that I've actually watched their work, and we can start a nice rapport, right? We don't have to respond. I'm not asking for something. I'm kind of contributing to it. And I also think those relationships will start to spawn. And wherever you put intention, where your attention goes, and I've said this to several of my actors,
success grows.
Success grows. And you end up being in Starbucks turning around and that casting director that you emailed 3 weeks ago just happens to be there. But now you know what they look like. You know what they've been casting. You can walk up and be like, oh my God, I emailed you. I just really, now you have a nice conversation going. That's not like, hi, pick me, choose me. They know you're an actor. They get 5,000 DMs a day. That's like, hey, come see
Exactly.
my play. No, I want to do business the way I want to be looked at in 30, 40 years as an actor. When I'm
Right.
sitting in the Emmy, room, and I can go up to Julie Schubert and be like, remember when we did that podcast? And oh my gosh, the madness was so great. And I want us to be, we want to be human. Casting directors are humans, just like agents and managers.
Right.
So those are my two bigs.
That's great. So I love it. And actually, I tell people to do the same thing online. Coaches is to have that conversation. It's the same thing. I was just sitting here thinking it's the same thing. Okay. So when you do that, I would love to hear when you do send those messages, do they always write back?
No, not all the time.
But sometimes
But they
do.
don't need to. And I think that that's the thing. We as actors, we are looking for validation. Everybody is. You're looking for validation.
Every person
right?
is.
Right. But we put the validation in the wrong loop. The validation before would you go into a room and they'd be like, okay, thank you. Or they'd work with you or you get the job. That validation loop is going to be destructive to your mental health because you do not know why they're selecting who they're selecting because it's not rejection, right? So I like to put the validation loop back into my own hands. So I don't ask for things. I give information. I give compliments. I start a relationship in that regard because then I'm not looking for like, did they respond back? It's also like dating, right? Sometimes if you ask a question and then they don't respond, then you're like, they haven't responded for 12 hours. But if you're like, hey, I'm thinking about you today. Have a great day. We can all go on our way, right? So that's why when you send those emails, I don't want anybody to ask for questions or ask questions right away. Cause I think immediately it puts in a hierarchy.
Demand. It's a demand.
It's a demand and people don't.
Just to reach out. Hey, how you doing? Love your work done. I don't want anything. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not one of those needy actors, but I agree with you. And it's not just acting, but this also is with business when people are on sales calls. So when we disempower,
I've had two responses. I want to say have had two responses when I went to managers and agents and I complimented them on their work and their roster. That has garnered me in the future meetings with those agents and managers when I was seeking that. But my initial email to them was never. I emailed somebody the other day because he has the same last name that I do, and
that's pretty big.
It's an agency that's really big. I didn't ask him for anything. I just was like, holy, my last name is so unusual. So is yours.
It is unusual.
And I was like, and I've interviewed so many of your amazing actors and I've worked with one of your actors. How crazy. I wonder if we're related. Have a great day. Now, if maybe in the future I'm in need of an agent, that might be somebody I can circle back to where I've started a conversation, but I haven't asked for anything yet.
Right. Right. So this is the thing. What you're talking about is empowering ourselves because they always talk about, I empower those people. We don't empower anybody. We empower ourselves. And some people can inspire us to empower ourselves. But I always think it's funny when people say, I empower women. I said, I'm thinking you just disempowered them by saying you're the one that has the power. How did they never get that? Am I the only one that gets that? What you're talking about is that we're empowered. You're saying the actors need to empower themselves, that no matter what, we are not, our feelings and emotions and moods and how we think or feel are not contingent upon something we're assuming because we don't know why they didn't want us. No idea, right? And it erodes confidence and makes actors weak and needy. And I've seen this. It's like, oh my goodness, all these actors are so broken because it's all about the validation of what somebody said in an audition. Actors and all human beings need to have their own power no matter what happens.
Yes.
From exterior sources. Yes.
And I like to set intentions, and I think that that's something that is beautiful in business, life, and auditions. For auditions, like I said, the validation loop of like, oh my God, did I get it? Or did I do that? No, I set an intention before I tape something, before I have a podcast interview, before I sat down with you. A couple deep breaths. What do I intend to do with this audition? Oh, I really want to discover the relationship better. Or I want to surprise myself in this moment. So when I'm done with my audition, I can look back and I can measure that intentions and be like, oh, wow, yeah, I discovered something in that. Or, oh, yeah, that was a really beautiful moment. Okay, I'm sending the tape. It doesn't matter what happens anymore. Because I can't tell you how many times I've run into casting people years later, months later, after having wonderful auditions that earlier in my career, I left and I was like, damn, I thought I did so good and I didn't get it. Only come to find out 2 years later, I'm sitting in a coffee shop and that casting director comes up and is like, oh my God, your audition. I still think about it. But I
Wow.
imploded for a couple of years because I was like, I guess I'm not right. I guess I'm not
Mm,
trusting who I am because I'm looking for the validation outside of
right.
myself. Now I can
Instead
submit
of
tapes and just let it
just
go.
do it. You did your best. And I think if we did our best, we did our best. And we can't,
Mhm.
the problem with the acting profession is that it is about twisting yourself into a pretzel to please other people. So it's hard to not care about the validation because of the nature of the business, right?
Well,
I get it.
I
I
think
get
the
it.
nature of the business, that's what we think that it is. I think the hard
Hmm.
time is like you have to be really vulnerable, open, and aware. And then
Right.
afterwards, you want to make sure that you did that well or right. I don't
Hmm.
think that that's actually what acting is. I think a lot of
No,
casting and producers and directors, they respond to confidence. So I can't tell you how many times the person that is not the best actor doesn't get the job. The person who
but
has
they're
the best
confident.
confidence actually gets the job because they
Of
can
course,
trust
because
them.
they need them to be able to get to that set and not crumple.
Yes.
Exactly.
You got millions of dollars on the
Yeah.
line for you to
I,
not get in your head and
Yeah,
fail.
I actually got a role in a Catherine Zeta Jones film, which was a small role.
Yeah.
It was, No Reservations.
Oh
I
yes, I
got,
love that
and
movie.
in the end, you should go watch it. But I'm like in the background. One line got, left in. But they interviewed. They didn't audition us. They interviewed that director interviewed us. And when I came in, I didn't even really care about it. I was like, whatever. And you could see that I was like, oh well, because I was making a lot of money consulting for Wall Street. So I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want this. So they had to convince me to take that role because I was like, yeah, but you know what? I'm making this much money on Wall Street because I didn't care. I said, but
Mhm.
I'm a consultant. I'm an executive recruiter for Wall Street and I'm making this much per day. And you want me to do this and it's mainly extra, but a couple lines maybe? I don't
Yeah.
know. So the actual first assistant director calls me. He calls me and he says, Jean, you're going to do this, right? I said, yeah, I don't know. He goes, oh, but the director really wants you. I said, I'm glad. However, you have to guarantee a line. I don't know if I can do that. I said, oh, I don't know if I can be in the film. I played his great. I paid his. Then they were like, we don't believe this. He said, do you know how many people that we've interviewed? I said, I know. I said, I'm so sorry. I said, but look at what I'm making. I don't want to do that anymore. He was like, oh, I said, if you can promise me. He goes, well, I said, will you promise me? I was literally negotiating. Will you promise me that I will get lines? He
Mm.
goes, I can't promise that. I said, I can't promise I'm going to be in it. We're back where we are. I literally said this. He goes, well, I said, okay. Will you promise that you will really try? He goes, yes. Do you know what I did every day? I walked up to him every single day on that set. And I said, when's my line? He's like, and he would smile. I say, when's my line? Every day. And it went on because I was on that phone because I was closely working with, in the same scenes for over a month, because they had to have their main, featured extra waitress. I was a waitress. Finally, it was like the last day and I said, I need my line and I need it now. He goes, okay. But then I think he told the director, we sort of said we'd try to promise her a line. And so he turns around and he goes, okay, I love that reaction. I just started talking in the scene. Like it was really unprofessional. I thought I'm just going to throw lines out. He goes, oh, that was brilliant. He goes, now pantomime that. And I just thought, are you kidding me? So I dropped the fork on purpose when he turned around, like, are you kidding me? And then he went, okay, you can talk. So I got my lines.
There you
Okay. The
go.
reason I got that is because I was strong and I just said, no, I'm negotiating this. And nobody does that.
Nobody does that. I sat one of my dear friends as John Bernthal. He works all the time. You turn on the television, he's everything. He's the Punisher. He's from
Mm-hmm.
The Walking Dead. You name it, he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday we had a long conversation. He's like, what's really crazy is that like I'm getting more opportunity now and I don't understand it. And I said, John, you've been saying no for the last 20 years. You're the only actor I know that says no. And now you're at that
Mm-hmm.
he's the tippity top. And people
Mm-hmm.
always come back. If your no is truly authentic, you know your boundaries, you
Mm-hmm.
know your value as an artist and as a person,
Mm-hmm.
that is magnetizing. There is
It
no
is.
way. And then they throw more money at you. Then they want this and that. Getting away from like, I need this desperation
Mm-hmm.
Or even, and that's the one myth that I love to blow up too, is every actor is like, well, when I get that series regular, or when I get that Oscar, or when I make
Yeah,
six
right.
figures as an actor. Let me tell you, I've been interviewing and working with some of the best, even Lawrence Fishburne. Every single job, they have that same thing where they're like, I don't know if I'm going to still keep doing this. It never goes
Yes.
away. The mental health piece never goes away.
I know.
So working on that mental health piece, and also not putting your happiness or, where your bridge needs to go so outside of who you are, thinking that, oh, it's going to get better here. No, you're just going to, when you become a series regular, it's just a whole different set of problems that you're working with
Of
as an
course it
actor.
is.
And then
Burnout and
you're
getting up
not
at
getting
4 o'clock
enough
in the morning.
screen time, right? Then it's like,
Yes.
I'm number 2, but number 1 gets all that. Like, who cares? Who
It's
cares?
just it's a moving. That's the moving target of it.
Always, always,
But
right?
it's for that's life again, because we get to a certain point and it's, you have to stop and smell the flowers, the roses or whatever. You have to stop and smell the roses, because any actor, it's also for business. Trust me on that. When I got to being $1 million coach, I was like, okay, now I'm here. I was very grateful, to be honest. And then it kept going. But I have to remind myself every day, I am grateful I have these problems, because it's way
Yeah.
better than the other problems I used to have, which is being deep in debt as a single mom. So I love all this. And this is all applicable to life and business. So now tell me, now you were telling me you have created this incredible platform for actors to, and I see that you really want to help. I love that, because that jealous acting thing of the past has to go. People have to meld together and help each other and cheer each other on. So you have a platform that does just that. And you've had a lot of clients, actors on this platform over how many years?
We launched in 2020. The Bridge for Actors launched. I'd been doing the podcast since 2017. I've been doing interviews since 2009. And what I realized is, with auditions specifically and with acting, like I love using this example. Kate Hudson, she didn't get Almost Famous. She didn't get it. She was the number 2 choice. The day before shooting happened, she, like, somebody fell out, then she got it. So you never know what is going to be the thing that starts and keeps you going. So I really wanted to create, Anna and I both did. Anna La Madrid is my partner in the Bridge for Actors. She had created her own business of Put Me On Self-Tape. So she was helping actors put themselves on tape. And when we came together, we're kind of like the yin and yang. We really wanted actors to have a one-stop shop. So you're not running around all over town trying to, like, find that notebook, or like, now I have a comedy audition. What did that comedic actor tell me? And also, I think 2020 is when the whole climate of this industry changed. The whole world changed. Coaching
Of
changed.
course, everything changed.
Every business changed, right? Every business went online. So we
Yes,
became
that's right.
a self-taping business as actors. Like, you have to know how to self-tape. But it's not just self-taping. You also have to know how to do your craft. You also have to understand the business and be able to, especially when we were behind closed doors, how are we going to be able to network? How are we going to be able to meet new casting directors, or talk to an editor, or talk to a director, whoever it might be? So we wanted to put everything all in one space. And the one thing that drove me crazy for the 20 years that I've been, because I still coach. I think that's the other thing that's important to say. It's like what we were talking about. I don't think as a creative person, or even as a person, you should ever stop learning. So I'm constantly in this circle of being the teacher, the master, the teacher, and the master, right? And so the teacher, the master, the student, the student and the teacher kind of cycle. But I really wanted to make sure that everything could be in one space, and you wouldn't lose your investment when you book something. So actors, this happens all the time. They pay $700 for this amazing acting class, and I'm not knocking them, but then they get a beautiful film, or they get a television show, and then that class comes and goes. So I didn't want actors to lose their investment. So if everything is online and accessible to you while you're in the membership, we've got young, parents. I'm a young parent still. I consider myself that. Sometimes the time that I can work is between 12 and 2 in the morning. So it's the other thing with being online. You could jump into any of these courses at any time. All of our live coachings are also recorded. So your teaching and your investment never leaves you.
Right.
And
It's good to have the
huge.
Yes, it's great to have the platform. And I think it's great that you're organizing everything. Well, listen, has been fantastic to speak with you. I think that you're doing a really great service, because all the running around and dressing up and all the running around It's great. It stops so actors can just stay at home more and get more auditions out. This is amazing. So now you have something new coming up. Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, I think because everything is self-tape, and we were talking about this offline too, is you don't know what you don't know as an actor. And since we are very much, we're going to stay in this hybrid version of self-tapes, and then possibly your next thing will be going into the room. If you don't know where your self-tapes are, a lot of actors, because it's such a solo experience, right? You have maybe your agent or manager that's like, great tape. They don't know. They're agents and managers. Their job is to get you the opportunity. It's not to give you necessarily feedback on your craft or technique. So coming later this year, I'm just going to be opening up my schedule for an hour once a week where I can meet with actors. They can send me their self-tape, and I can walk through where they need to go, where they need to improve in their self-tapes. How are they doing? So then they can understand, and then they can see other people's self-tapes. That's basically what our membership does.
That's awesome.
But right now, I want to be able to, the climate that we're in, be able to give an immediate feedback, and they can have like a temperature check. We call it check the gate. See where you are in your process. And that's not something I've ever done. So this will be free. It'll be first come, first serve once a week, pretty much every Wednesday. I'm going to do from like a 12 to 1, 4 slots. Come submit your tape and I'll let you know, hey, you're in a good standing, or like, hey, you need to work on X, Y, and Z. So you know where to go. And it's not an investment. It's something to actually help. I'm always in that circle of mentoring, and it's not something that's going to hurt you. Right. I think sometimes when you submit a tape to your agent or manager and it's not great, or if you submit a tape to casting and it's not great, but you think that it is, that seed that you wanted to plant, that relationship that you wanted to start budding, is going to work against you. So
it could be a bad impression. So you want to help people, you want to help them. That is such a great deal. So we will be having all the links to everything that Alyshia and her partner does in the show notes. So if you want to hop, I would hop right on that, actors that are listening, or if you know anybody. That's an extraordinary thing to be able to get that from somebody like Alyshia. So Alyshia, this has been so great to have you. Do you have any parting words of encouragement to actors?
Yes, 2 things. One, I would say, I kind of touched on it a couple of times. Look at your career as a staircase, little incremental step ups. So I talk about this when I consult actors, but what is a game plan for the next 3 months? And what can you do every day to work towards that? So for example, you want to meet 2 new casting directors. Let's not try and say, I'm going to be a series regular next year. Let's look at 2 casting directors you want to get in front of for that first semester of 2024. Or have it be, I'm going to work really hard to get my setup ready to go. So when I get an audition, I can do it in 5 minutes. My setup takes me less than 5 minutes. I'm not stressed about that. So incremental stepping stones. And then the last thing I'm going to say, find your tribe, find your community. Go listen to that One Audition. So you are not alone, because as a creative, you need to have community in order to sustain your creative juices and your mindset. So find your tribe, find your community. Come join us at the Bridge for Actors. But if not, find your peoples.
Right. Okay, wise words, and those words go for everyone. Alyshia, this has been a pleasure. I thank everybody for listening, and share this one around. Okay, take care, everybody. Bye. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Business Wealth Impact. I hope you found today's conversation insightful and life-changing. If you want to support the show and stay up to date with all of our latest episodes, the easiest way to do that is by following us on your favorite podcast platform. Just hit that follow button to never miss an episode. And if you really love the show and want to help us spread the word, leave us a review and share the podcast with your friends. Again, be sure to subscribe, and until next time, be impactful.